I turned it on. I turned on the recording. We're recording right now. Just
go.
All right. The goal of this course, our project is about urbanization. Our goal is to tie in a theme of urbanization and kind of identify that within the Woman in the Dunes. So to begin this presentation, I'm going to kind of do a general brief overview of what urbanization is so we can better understand then how it will connect to Japan, its history, and to the Woman in the Dunes. The definition of urbanization is the physical growth of urban areas as a result of global change. And the United Nations projects that by 2008, half of all people will live in cities, so this is significant. It's also related closely to modernization, industrialization, and rationalization. Modernization and industrialization being kind of things that happen within an economy, within a culture. Rationalization being the kind of a system of thought that develops as people modernize. The term can also describe the proportion of total population or rural population versus that of cities and towns. It occurs due to rural to urban migration. People move to cities for better economic opportunities. This movement occurs especially in developing countries. Examples include late 19th century immigration of southern farmers and sharecroppers to northern cities like Detroit and Chicago. The trend of urbanization manifested itself at the turn of the previous century in the West, leading to its current economic and political dominance. Example, the Industrial Revolution in the United Kingdom, or the United States with the great migration of African Americans to the north, or the immigration of Europeans to our eastern cities. That's what's made America the superpower it is today. This was as a result of increasing agricultural efficiency and would allow for the creation of a consumer economy. The developing world is now playing catch-up, trying to replicate the previous successes of the West. We see this trend of urban growth in the graph, based on UN data. In our new urban millennium, as the UN calls it, the high urbanization levels of the West are being pursued by rapid rates of urbanization in the developing world. For example, India and China. As those countries become more modernized and efficient, urban growth is expected to continue at this pace well into the foreseeable future, as you can see in the graph. All right, urbanization occurs as people search for economic prosperity. It occurs as farms industrialize and rural flight takes place. Cities attract people as centers of service, industries, and wealth. People ultimately are drawn in by the potential for social mobility. Pollution is the result of rapid industrialization that occurs with urbanization. Industrialization causes global warming as CO2 emissions intensify. Urbanization also leads to paving over of the world, meaning less heat is released in the night and more is absorbed at day, reducing soil moisture. Rapid urbanization is also leading to slash and burn practices in Africa and the Amazon. So there is a severe negative environmental impact. As cities develop, the working class, due to dramatic increases in urban living costs, is frequently priced out of the market. This leads to the creation of urban poor and a rising inequality among classes. Ultimately, segregation of classes occurs as violent responses is possible and theorized. That's theorized by Karl Marx. The wealthy move to counter-urbanize and suburbanize in response. Urbanization, however, is simply the natural occurrence from individual and corporate efforts to reduce transport and commuting expenses while improving economic opportunities and creating social advancement. That's what it all boils down to. This happens as economies become more efficient and social evolution occurs. But of course, in evolution, one must adapt or die, and really that's what it all comes down to in The Woman in the Dunes. And really the big theme of urbanization that I think we're going to be focusing on is going to be the breakdown of tradition and the homogenization of a global culture that forms as urbanization occurs. And all right, I'm going to have a couple discussion questions that we're going to go into now. So for you guys, would you consider yourself a suburban or an urban dweller, and how does that affect your life? Ellery?
I'm sort of myself a suburban dog, because I live in the suburbs of the north side of Indianapolis. And I think it's kind of nice because it's like close to the city, but it's also kind of, it's smaller, it's not so overwhelming, maybe.
Great.
I would say urban because I live in the city and I'm not in a suburb. And I like it because I think it's like provides a lot of opportunity for cultural diversity. And yeah, that's it.
All right, so as a dweller of either environment, do you see urbanization as a positive or negative in the world? Does someone have an answer to that? Is it a good thing?
I think it's a good thing because, like Grace says, it provides more cultural diversity, and you aren't just like living in the stereotypical like rich white suburb.
And I'd agree with that, but see, and then the fear is with some cultures though is that it also, by destroying kind of the fabric of rural life, it also kind of paves over pre-existing cultures. But I can see both points of view. And do you guys think Kobo Abe was criticizing Japan's urbanizing tendencies in his work, which was almost kind of Marxist, was something Ellery talked about yesterday? Do you think he was kind of a critique, maybe?
I think it could stem because he was kind of Japanese, he lived more in China, and it's kind of like the conformity in Japanese society that he probably looked down upon and kind of showed that through the novel.
All right, thanks.
I almost have to wonder if the sand could have symbolized the inability to ward off the reality that urbanization was coming and therefore culture was dying off. So I think it was definitely a point.
Great point. All right, now I think Michael's going to take over.
All right, so I'm going to take you through like the history of urbanization, how it came about, and how it like exploded through the years. And like Finn said, industrialization is a huge part of it, and it began really with the Industrial Revolution. And at that time, only 3% of the world's population lived in cities, and within 50 years, it jumped to 30%. And it's grown rapidly, and because the cities have grown in size and power, and more of the economy is based on factory workers and working in the factories rather than agricultural work. And by the year 2000, about 48% of the world's population is living in cities, so you can see that how much it's exploding and increasing. Right. So in 1900, only 13 cities had populations over 1 million, and today there are over 330. So that really tells you how much it's jumped over the years. And all except Tokyo, out of those first 13, were in Europe or North America, and now the only one that's in the top 10 largest cities is New York, Europe and North America. Populated area, as defined as urban areas, and the area must have over 20,000 people living in it, and cities of over 5 million people are considered megacities. And in 2000, there were 41 megacities, and it's expected to be over 50 by 2015. And this is just a graph of how urbanization has increased over the years in each continent. The green one's Africa, and you can see it started below 20%, and it'll be up to over 50% by 2050. And the main ones here are Asia and the world. You see the world starts at about 30% in 1950, and by 2050 it'll be over 60%. And Asia will be well over 50% too by that time. And this is just another graph of about the same thing. You can see Asia started with only 16.6%, and by the year 2005 it jumped to 40%. So that's a large jump in the amount of people that live in cities and urban areas. And that a lot of that's due to the industrialization and like the amount of factories and the jobs that are created in the cities rather than out in the rural areas. And a couple discussion questions. Is urbanization good or bad, would you say, for the entire world?